Now, to talk more about the ANC NGC meeting, we're joined by political analyst Professor Kedibone Phago. Prof Phago, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Perhaps to start the conversation at the tail end of this evening, and that is President Ramaphosa's address at the NGC Gala dinner commemorating the 70 years of the Freedom Charter. And I guess we have to ask the question, perhaps even just to set the tone, but importantly, the ANC continues to have to reflect on this question. Does the party today embody the 10 tenets of the Freedom Charter? Do you believe that the Freedom Charter is a by-the-way concept and document in the lifespan of the ANC today? Or do you believe that it still forms a guiding light for the ANC, its policy decision-making and its behavior in government?
Good evening, Oliver, and thank you for having me. And that is a very important conversation I think we need to have for many reasons. But I think one of the fundamental reasons was that at the time when the Freedom Charter was adopted, up to the stage when South Africa transitioned into a democracy in 1994, there was a general consensus at that point that ANC is the leader of the society. And that was quite important and significant, and it is because of the manner in which ANC conducted itself by and large during the liberation days. But I think we have reached a point where there is also a general consensus that ANC does not occupy that space anymore, and that means that anything that would relate to those critical aspects the president was reflecting upon, the key tenets of the Freedom Charter and of course our constitution, would not necessarily be attributed to the ANC. And there are many examples we can refer to tonight, Oliver. If you remember the situation around Life Esidimeni, you know, that was the ANC government treating its very own people. The collapse of our public institutions, the state-owned enterprises, our local government, which is actually completely obliterated by the ANC itself, which speaks seeks to speak for the Freedom Charter. You know, we can talk about so many social ills that we are facing, and it is precisely because that the ANC does no longer embody any of those critical tenets of the Freedom Charter and of our constitutions, in my view.
I guess there's an irony that needs to be addressed over the weekend, right? And the irony is that the ANC is pontificating upon whether or not it should cut the umbilical cord, so to speak, with the South African Communist Party, and at the same time reminding itself about what the Freedom Charter says, which is the people shall share in the country's wealth and the land shall be shared amongst those who work it. And now these are core principles of the South African Communist Party, and perhaps even COSATU, although their relationship seems to be as strong as it was. However, to cut off the Communist Party, which was always seen as the ideological center for pursuing a communist or an inclusive communist socialist agenda, seems to be a turning point, right? Or at least a point of inflection between itself and the ANC. There's an irony in that, but it's an important question for the ANC to talk about the Communist Party, that is. What do you think perhaps is lacking from the conversation around whether or not it should keep the Communist Party as a partner or should cut it off entirely?
Look, Oliver, the fundamental question at the center of this is politics. And this is because what you will remember is that the aspiration of any political party and politicians is obviously access to the state resources. And so the question of the Tripartite alliance, as it had unfolded post-apartheid South Africa, is that there has always been a co-option of, co-opting people from the Communist Party, from the SACP, the SACP, from COSATU into ministerial positions, and that has always been, has been a reflection that we have seen over many years. And that has actually brought in the Tripartite Alliance into loggerheads, because those who were unable from the Communist Party or from the COSATU were unable to access these levers of power through the ANC have always been considered to be rebellious and loudmouth and so on. And I think that is at the center. But what is quite important is that this is not a new conversation. It's as old as we can remember, especially post 1994. But the part of it where I am very concerned is that the decision by the Communist Party to actually start contesting elections on their own has already by now demonstrated or backfired to the Communist Party. It has demonstrated to the Communist Party that it does not have the popularity it needs, because at the end of the day, the elections are about popularity. So it does not command that. So it will definitely, if it wants to sustain itself going forward, find a way of reconciling with the ANC. Of course, that is if they still want to access whatever remains of the power that the ANC can have going forward.
Prof, just a last question, and very briefly on this, we are out of time. Tomorrow the ANC is set to discuss a very important proposal that is supposed to bring an end to political patronage within the organization in selecting and electing its leadership. And that is the proposal by the Veterans League of a one-member, one-vote system where all those who are members of the ANC, and we got the numbers last night from the Secretary General, around 540,000 people who are members in good standing, that they get to vote directly for the new leadership rather than through voting through a branch or a branch delegate or a regional delegate or a league delegate, and that every member should have a vote. Do you think that's a panacea to the ANC's undoing?
Look, not at all, Oliver. I think ANC lives in a bubble. It's a bubble that we cannot reach as South Africans, because these are long-standing problems, and they are chronic and they are intractable. So they needed really to find better ways of cleansing themselves, because the very same Veterans League and the NEC members are the ones that are embroiled into this corruption. So you cannot expect the very same people that have been fingered in one form or the other, whether it's allegations, whether it's charges, that they should be the one determining how to move forward. So they really have failed over many years to create credible and good structures that will demonstrate to South Africans that ANC is serious about moving the developmental agenda of this country forward.
Prof Phago, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights. Really do appreciate it. That is Prof Kedibone Phago from the Northwest University.